Welcome to the Creation Innovation Podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth King. Together, we'll have conversations with incredible human beings who have taken their creative outlet and turned it into something innovative. From people leaving the corporate world to be 8-figure entrepreneurs to people who have created books, created a family, or just creating to have fun in the world. We are all in a journey to create something amazing in our lives, and I hope that you find some inspiration of your own here. This is the Creation Innovation Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to Creation Innovation. Today we are talking with Jessie Jaskulsky and her story that has led her to founding, I should say, the Simplified. Thanks for being here, Jessie.
Thanks for having me.
I'm just going to read her intro. After a devastating 22-week pregnancy loss that led to secondary infertility, Jessie spent years trying to complete her family and ultimately had both of her daughters through surrogacy. Through her journey to becoming a mom, she felt as though she had an obstacle at every turn. Jessie founded Surrogacy Simplified, a boutique surrogacy consulting agency and white glove concierge. It helps intended parents start and complete their family through selfless gift of surrogacy. Jessie takes care of all the details, big and small, allowing her clients to truly enjoy this pathway to parenthood. Wow, what a journey. Gosh, from going from one thing all the way now to the next of seeing this beautiful experience for other families is congratulations on that, first of all.
Thank you.
So, as we started, the 22-week loss really hit me because I've gone through that with so many clients, and actually
Mhm.
is what got me to become certified as a bereavement doula, was helping
Right.
people through those late losses. Tell us a little bit about that for you. Tell us the story about your little one there.
Yeah. So I had a relatively easy conception and pregnancy. Everything was going so smoothly that my husband and I had went on our baby moon to Arizona, and I'm from Maryland. So this was quite a journey for us. And halfway through the trip, I started having a lot of stomach pain, which I later found out was contractions. I had thought it was from trying all these different cuisines in Arizona, and I started to bleed. We rushed to the hospital, and I had been in full blown labor.
Wow.
Yeah. And
And nothing prior to that to indicate that anything had been coming up?
no, and I actually had had my anatomy scan and everything looked great right
Mm.
before we had left for our baby moon. And long story short, it's like, and to this day, we don't know if I had incompetent cervix and then I went into labor, or if I went into labor and then my cervix began shortening
And how long ago was that, Jessie?
years ago.
Okay, I'm so sorry for your loss and having to go through that whole experience of getting to a point, like you said, seeing the anatomy scan for a lot of people is feeling like, okay, they have the green light and they know everything is good and baby's healthy and everything. So I can't imagine the devastation for you and your husband to realize that being told you're going into labor. Like, where's your head at when that happens?
It was just everything happened so fast. There was a brief period while we were in the hospital that they were going to try to do an amniocentesis and see if they could figure out what's going on and stop the pregnancy, but they just were unable to do so, and they were not able to stop my labor. It was just unbelievably, like, the shock. I couldn't have imagined something like that happening. It was Christmas on top of
Mm.
everything, and it was just devastating.
So how long did you stay in Arizona for? How did you pick yourself up from that situation?
We were in the hospital for about 48 hours, and then we were cleared by the team there that it was okay for me to fly home. But we also had to then we while we were there, we spent time with my son who I delivered at 22 weeks, and then we also had to get him home, which the hospital helped us with so we could give
Mhm.
him a proper burial.
And during that time, do you feel like you're just in shock? Like, what is even
Yes.
happening right now? Like, were you able to comprehend what was going on? Again, I feel like you would just be in a daze almost.
Yes, exactly. I remember I have bits and pieces of memories from it. And I would say there's certain things I remember, like the look on the nurse's face when she saw me in triage. My husband and I were like, "Wow, this is we had no idea that like what we were coming in here for." And then I
Mhm.
remember, holding him, and then I remember going through the wheelchair to get back home.
Mhm. And when do you feel like it actually hit you of what
I think once we got home, I really realized what was happening. I mean, I of course was feeling it while we were there and I was going through labor and I was holding him, but like the full picture of like what had just the past couple days had been like once I was home really hit me.
and how did your husband deal with it too? I feel like we always kind of focus on the women and we don't often check in with the guys. How was that for him?
He was devastated. Totally devastated, and he was really supportive afterwards too. He came with me to see a grief counselor to make sure he was able to not only process it himself, but then know how the best ways to support me through something like that.
And after that happened, were you like, "Okay, I wanna try to conceive right away?" Were you like, "I need to heal first emotionally, physically, spiritually, and then try again?" At what point did you, because you mentioned in your bio that you realize you have secondary infertility because of this. At what point did that start to come up?
So a couple weeks later, initially I thought, yes, we would grieve this pregnancy, learn all the tools to cope with a loss like this, and then hope get pregnant again because, like I had mentioned in the beginning, I got pregnant very easily with him. A couple weeks later, we're home and I started hemorrhaging. And it turns out that I had retained placenta and I needed an emergency D&C. And I did not realize at the time that that was going to be the catalyst for all of my secondary infertility that led me down the path of surrogacy. I had a preconception appointment with a high risk doctor following my D&C. And she said, I'll never forget, there's a very small chance you'll have Asherman syndrome when you
Mm,
have a D&C after having like like a raw, they called it a raw uterus since I had just delivered. There is a chance that there can be scarring. It's a very low likelihood. Watch your periods. Maybe she said 5% chance. It was very low. And long story short, like 6 months go by, and after being bounced around between the OB and the fertility specialist, I had been given that diagnosis.
I'm so sorry. So it's almost like dealing with, you're grieving the loss of your son, which again, I am so sorry that you had to go through that. And then grieving this part of your body, that understanding what that means. Like, how did you then deal with that? Of where do you pick yourself up from there and say, okay, what's our next option then? Were you right away? Okay, surrogacy, this is what we're going to do.
No, so immediately once we got that diagnosis, and I'm kind of summarizing just for the purpose of this podcast, like
Sure.
years from the minute of my loss to now, at least a year and a half have gone by because when you make the fertility appointments, as you know, like there are certain days of your cycle and things just the time kind of piles up.
Right.
But then I went to a specialist that would remove my scarring, my adhesions from my Asherman syndrome. And then I had a surgery as under general anesthesia. They placed the balloon catheter in. The balloon comes out. Long story short, a couple months later, my lining was not thin enough, was not thickening
Like,
as the way it should have been. And then
mhm.
we made the determination, my husband and I'm having trouble getting pregnant. And then even if I get pregnant, I need to make it past 22 weeks to hopefully, much, much longer than that to have a healthy child. And given all of that, we were in sort of this gray area, and no one was really telling us definitely to move forward with surrogacy. But
Mhm.
me and my husband felt in our hearts, I just didn't feel like we were giving the baby the safest uterus and chance at the viability. And with that, we asked our team what they thought about surrogacy, and they agreed to move forward.
Amazing, because I think that it's such a big decision, right? And you're dealing with
Right.
big decisions every step of the way and big news every step of the way, too, right? So you have this major surgery hoping that this is going to be the answer, only to find out, maybe not. And then you say, I need to make it to that 22 mark. And I hear this all the time, Jesse, with people in support groups and whatever that I lead, that wherever their loss was, whether it was 7 weeks or 10 weeks or 22 or beyond, everybody just wants to get to that mark that they had their loss at. They kind of feel like that's the safe number if they make it past that.
Right.
Was that something that was in your mind too when you mentioned, I just need to get back past 22 weeks? Or Was there something knowing in you of like, I just don't trust my body to do this overall?
I think both. I was worried that even if my lining thickened and my body cooperated, that I still had all of those reasons for my loss, that we still weren't quite sure if I
Mhm.
what would happen if I were to get pregnant again. And the thought of having another loss that late, we just didn't think that we could emotionally endure that again.
Absolutely. I don't blame you 1 second. I think I would be the same way. Whatever is the safest route. I think a lot of us kind of go to whatever the sure deal is, right? Thinking
Yeah.
that that's going to be it. And even going into surrogacy, I think same thing with IVF. A lot of people think, okay, I finally make this decision to do IVF, or I finally make the decision to do donor conception or surrogacy or whatever it is, only to find out even those things aren't a for sure deal. When
And
you guys decided to go down the road of surrogacy, did you think like, okay, that was gonna be slam dunk, this is it?
yes. And, we thought that, and then we were in for a bumpy ride, especially for our oldest daughter, who's now 4. Our, first surrogate miscarried. She developed a rare complication to the IVF
Oh,
medication that she
no.
was on, and we had to break the match because of that so she could take care of herself. We loved her, and start from scratch. So, yes, to your point, we were shocked. We didn't think that it was possible that something
Oh,
like this could
no, I'm so
happen
sorry to
after.
hear that. But then also, it's like fueling your fire, right? For now where you are today, I imagine, to know in order to help all these other people that you do this. So, what was a turning point for you to open your own agency and start to help people on this journey? Obviously, now
Yeah.
we know fast forward you have 2 beautiful daughters, but there's always the trauma that goes on in between then. So, what got you from point A to point B?
Yeah. I would say that I felt, and I can joke now, but I couldn't always, that anything that could go wrong, it very much felt like it went wrong. And when I say that to clients, it almost always hits home because they feel the exact same way. And
Right,
unfortunately for myself, and I joke fortunately for others, now I feel like I have all of this wisdom that I would love to share with others and
right.
impart and make their experience hopefully a little less rocky. Hope and ideally very smooth for them. And I felt like there were so many beautiful surrogacy agencies out there, but there weren't really any surrogacy consultant and concierge that set out to do what I do. And I wanted to create something that I didn't feel like really existed in the third party world.
Which is what? Tell us kind of what makes your company stand out from the next.
Yes. So I can support surrogacy journeys that are either on an independent journey, independent meaning the intended parents have someone that they know might match. So maybe a friend that's going to be their surrogate, or a family member, or someone they've met on social media. So they're able to save the agency fee and they can work with me to manage the entire process on their behalf. And then they also get this 24/7 access to me because I just remember how I felt wanting there to be somebody I could talk to, ask off the cuff questions from someone that's experienced it and been
For
there.
sure.
And
Mhm.
I'm able to give that to them.
Mhm.
And then for my intended parents that are using an agency, I help them find an agency, and the agents you can we kind of work in tandem. The agency takes care of all the big picture components of the journey, and I work on all of the little details because I found in both of my journeys I did one agency assisted and one independent. There's so much to do. And in both of them, it very much felt like my husband and I's second full-time jobs in the evenings, working
Right.
through sort of project managing surrogacy. And
For
I
sure.
wanted to really take all of that off of somebody else's hands and let them just kind of get excited for surrogacy and focus on their relationship with their surrogate and allow me to just kind of take care of everything else for them.
That's I mean, what a gift to give somebody that's going through this to say, "Okay, I don't have to worry about all that. I know it's
Yeah.
taken care of by somebody who's gone through it," because I'm the same. For me to meet somebody that gets what I've been through or going through is priceless, and to have that person on the other end of the phone or computer or whatever it is at any moment is also priceless, because when you're going through a period where you might not be in that exact moment of crisis because you've made your decision and you're making progress towards what you want. there's still those ups and downs and still information that can catch you off guard or whatnot. And I always say, like, if you're seeing a therapist, it might be Tuesday at 2. But what happens if you're having a meltdown Tuesday at 4 and you've already spoken to them and they're not
Right.
available, right? And that's where Jesse or a coach like my that really get in the weeds, so to speak, with you
Yeah.
really does make a difference on your journey because it's not just a like, okay, we'll see you next week. That's not how fertility works. That's not how any part of this journey works. And
Right.
so I think that's huge to be able to have somebody to get those, even if you're just venting for a minute, right? Of
Right.
like, something or excited and you wanna share some good news and just like a quick update. It's so needed on the path. So I'm really happy to hear that that's how you show up for people. Now,
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of controversy around surrogacy in the sense of a lot of celebrities have been doing it and people now tend to think like, "Oh, I don't wanna get fat, so I think I'm just gonna have a surrogate have my baby for me." And I laugh in saying that because that's so far from what I believe
Yeah.
personally as far as when people need to have that. But I feel like it has gotten this kind of assumption around it, right? You have to be extremely wealthy to have a surrogate and or you anybody who chooses not to want to be pregnant or give birth can do that.
Right.
So, can you shed some light on both of those things, Jesse, for people that are listening about one, the financial aspect, and two, it's not just for anybody who decides, they don't want to gain a little bit of weight and go through pregnancy or
Yeah,
birth.
and it's funny, I say publicly on my Instagram all the time, every time a celebrity comes out, I love that we're shining a light on surrogacy and sort of giving it this public platform, but then I'm always in the background. It's not just for the celebrities. Take this as like, be
Right.
happy for them, and I love that it's getting the platform. I feel like I never heard about it when I was going through this. I feel like recently it's becoming more and more talked about, but I also want people to not feel discouraged when they're hearing about all of the celebrities and feeling like the price tag is out of reach for them. I would say that there's grants available, there's financing options, there's ways. Yes, it's very expensive. There's no getting around that. And we might not be able, the everyday person might not be able to do it as, for example, Paris Hilton, like that. That might
Mhm.
be, not everybody could do ways to do it. And I would definitely say not to feel discouraged when it's a lot of celebrities guidelines under which to use a surrogate. So you have to have a reason, whether it's mental, like, so, anxiety, anything like, or a medication where if you came off it would be harmful for you, or a physical reason why you cannot carry your child. So for me that was the Asherman syndrome. For other people, there's a lot of women who are cancer survivors that will turn to surrogacy, or endometriosis, PCOS, all kind, like, a litany of reasons that people turn to
Right.
autoimmune issues. But yeah, it's really not for people that don't want to get fat. Some of us would gladly get fat, if that's the best term, to have carry the child ourselves.
Exactly. And as far as I'm glad that you bring up the different resources because I think that that's a case for IVF as well. People have this
Yeah.
idea in their head that it's something, and there are so many different resources and grants and things that are available now. And I think connecting with somebody like Jesse to help you navigate that process of even saying, what is this even an option for us? And what does that
Right.
look like? Because I think educating yourself is the first of looking into something. And having a conversation with a live person rather just than just scrolling through Google to educate yourself is so much more valuable than just self-educating online because there's those nuances that you won't know of until you speak to somebody who's gone through it. And obviously you going through it independently and through an agency is so different. So when you say you went through it independently, does that mean that you had a friend or family member that carried for you?
I actually met somebody on Facebook. There are private Facebook
Okay.
surrogate and intended parent matching groups, and I posted on them. And it can feel a little discouraging, honestly, because so many people post in those groups that your message could get easily missed. And I just feel really incredibly lucky that I met my carrier and that we had this beautiful relationship, and she delivered my youngest.
That's so cool. Now, when you say that there's so many messages getting lost, so many people offering services to carry and or looking for one, like when you say that, I just like get this like a crazy idea of like just both ways, right? Like, "Please have
Yeah.
my baby and please let me carry it for you," because I've seen a couple people that I know that are doing it independently now that, probably if I was an intended parent, I wouldn't be they would be my first choice. But at the same time, I think now knowing what I know, there's so much variation of age and price and all the things, right? So you find somebody who works in within what you're looking for, I guess, so to speak. But is that how are those groups? Is there a way to navigate those groups even so you don't get overwhelmed and you don't get lost in that for somebody
Yeah.
who's trying to go down that road?
I would say it's a lot of intended parents posting that they're looking for a surrogate. So you can almost feel like, why are they going to pick me? There's 10 other parents that
Okay.
posted, this week. And
Mhm.
there's just a lot of people looking for a gestational carrier. I would say for me, what I did was I shared a little bit about why I was pursuing surrogacy. I shared some pictures of my family. And I also shared a couple just clinic logistics, quite honestly, just so that they could read them ahead of time and see if they would be a good fit
Mhm.
emotionally by reading what I had to say about myself, and then logistically through what would clear them through my fertility clinic.
Right. And at any point, did you have any hesitancy about somebody carrying your baby?
I didn't. I totally appreciate and like speak with so many people that do and help work with them through that. But for me,
Mhm.
I was, I guess you could say, excited to be giving my future child the best chance at a
Mhm.
healthy gestation, as my crazy story would end. My oldest came 7 weeks early. My surrogate developed
Mm.
preeclampsia, so like anything that could happen really
Okay.
could.
Oh
But
my goodness.
during both, I just felt like I was not, like I said earlier, I wanted to give the baby the safest uterus, safest body, and did not have any issues letting that control go. I would have
Mhm.
loved for it to be me, but was okay that it wasn't.
Yes. I say all the time that the fact that we live in a world that this is an option and you can have a baby this way is so beautiful and amazing. And I think again, going back to education and talking to somebody who's gone through it and seeing what their experience has been and really figuring out if that's the right fit for you, but also knowing the bottom line, right? You want a healthy baby. And what's the best way
Right,
to get a healthy baby for you? And then what's important to you, right? Is it somebody carrying that? Is it adoption? Is it whatever it may be? There's so many different ways to parenthood now, which are amazing and beautiful. But you really have to figure out with you and your partner what feels good for you and what is the right path because for me, I think it's the what an amazing gift it would be to do that. I honestly
right.
don't know that I could do it myself. One, pregnancy is not my friend, but on the other side, I'm like, that would be so hard. And I think there's people that do sign up to be a surrogate have such a special place in this world to
Yeah.
give a gift to people that is incredible is there are no words that I can have to explain how amazing those people are because it's yeah, I just can't. I don't even know.
Yeah.
And do you continue those relationships with them after?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I am meeting my surrogate who had my youngest in a couple weeks. They're going to be in town for a cheerleading competition. So it's going to she hasn't seen
Oh,
my family since she delivered, and my daughter
oh,
is now 20 months. So it's going to be really fun for all of us to
so
get together
sweet.
and for her to see what she's like, the gift that she gave and like how it actually is playing out. Like she spent time with us in the hospital, but now here we are almost 2 years later, and like she can see my daughter talking and how she's interacting with my older one and like the joy that she brings us, and it's just going to be I'm really
Yeah.
looking forward.
Oh, that's so fun. And so that's my next question. As far as telling your girls about their story and how they came into the world, is that just an open conversation that you have with them kind of in passing? I mean, obviously they're young, but How do you guys plan to navigate that in the future, or is it just part of the day to day and so it's just evolving as it goes?
I would say, particularly for my 4-year-old, it's always been an open book and something that like that's talked about. And even just yesterday, she was home from school and we were discussing. I was like, "So tell me about how you were born." She's like, "I grew in Amber's belly." That's the name of her surrogate, and it's like normal to her. And when
Yeah.
we do drop off at school, she sees some of the women dropping off their kids pregnant, and we'll talk about it. Like they're having a baby for their family, and somebody else grew you for mommy because mommy's belly was sick. And like I explain it
Oh,
in a
right.
4-year-old terms, but like she
Right.
gets it as much as she can. And it's really
Yeah.
amazing because to her, it's just normal.
Right. And I think that is huge because she then, in her 4-year-old way, has a conversation with another one, in her, even at her age. I see it with my kids the same age, that the more that they are open, because they don't know any different, right? So they will have a
Right.
conversation with their friend about it. And then it opens their mind, right? It's this whole new world of the way that babies come into play and that it all comes in different ways. So I think that's really awesome to start as a regular conversation. How can people find you, follow you, work with you, know more about your story?
Yes, they can follow me. I post a lot of resources on Instagram, so I definitely recommend following me there. It's Simplified, my business name. My website is
What a
also
perfect
Surrogacy.
name.
Yes, that's what I wanted. I want it to be simple and easy for people. I
Awesome.
do have a free surrogacy ebook because I know sometimes hearing the information it's so overwhelming. So I want anyone, listening to this that's thinking about surrogacy to have a way to also like refer back and read it through everything. And I also offer an initial complimentary consultation. All of that's available on my website.
Amazing. So cool, Jessie. I'm so glad that you got to your happy ending and now you get to see lots of other happy endings. It's so fun. I mean,
Yes.
I feel like we have the best job ever when you get to see those babies come about, the positive pregnancy tests, and just knowing that you're helping and serving others on their journey. So I'm so glad that we connected today.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels full circle and it's incredibly fulfilling.
Yeah. Well, can't wait till our paths cross again. And thanks again for
Yeah,
being here.
thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Creation Innovation Podcast. Make sure to follow us on Spotify for free episodes and subscribe to the Creation Innovation Podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you choose to get your podcast. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening for a chance to receive a special gift. Yes, we actually do send out gifts. It's my favorite thing to do. So visit us at elizabethking.com/creation innovation for more information on how to enter. Every review counts, and we are so grateful. You can follow me at the official Elizabeth King on Instagram or TikTok. Until next time.